Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm going to be concluding my conversation with actor Robert Woods, who played David Spencer on the Waltons. So please welcome back, Bob.
Yeah, here's our little office.
Photos from things you guys have both.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't know if you knew that lady used to be on the Gold Diggers.
Yes, I did know that because when we all used to hang out together, I knew some of her past and her,
Yeah, and she was in Disney on Parade there.
Sweet.
I think people hopefully. Here's Swamp Thing. You can't even see him, can you? Swamp Thing is right here.
Okay.
Yeah. And pan around.
And then all your awards, because you've certainly been managed to collect those over.
Well, yeah, a couple of daytime. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, well, you just from your nervous beginnings, you managed to pull it together and have quite the career and longevity. So, I mean, that's
it's come a long way since Harry Harrison. Does somebody have a gun? But in the big picture, I wish you did, instead of Curt Willard, maybe married the other Doc.
Well, that's always an ongoing thing, with the fans, the sort of debate about whether they think Mary Ellen should have married David or married Curt.
Well, the best thing is they're talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. It worked. So
yeah. I mean, your character wasn't there that long, but it was such an integral part of the Mary Ellen storyline that obviously, because the character even came back and
yeah, popped back in a couple of times.
I still get asked that, and then people are familiar with your soap career, so like, oh yeah, and then he went on and he was Beau in One Life to Live, and I didn't really watch soaps, so I mean I knew you were doing the show, but
yeah,
I was just so happy for you that
Well, thanks.
Because I was there at the beginning, and so to know that it worked out for you.
Yeah, well, to watch TV during the daytime, you're already busy, so.
And I had friends who were on some of the soaps that were filming in LA, so sometimes I'd pop in and catch some of a show that was filming locally, just because I knew some of the actors.
Yeah, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, CBS did, yeah. Young and the Restless, Bold and the Beautiful.
Yeah, because I think, it seemed originally that most of the soaps were out of New York, and then it seemed like a lot of them kind of popped up in L.A. and almost like there was more in L.A. than New York or something.
Yeah, well, it's certainly more studio space, and we were in an old National Guard armory. It was really tight. The dressing rooms were in the basement. And they had all these trucks that were constantly coming in and out. It was a great building. It looked like it was a National Guard armory, so it looked kind of regimental with a turret kind of corners. And then this garage thing, which is where all the Walton trucks would pull in and out of there. But there was something going on 24 hours a day.
Did you have a preference between doing soaps and doing other film or television? Just more time to for the.
Yeah, it's always to have a prime time television show. I guess the next step after that is to have a movie career or something like that. In daytime, I think I had a meeting at CBS, and they said, "Well, what about daytime? Would you?" And I said, "No, I wanted to work in film." Of course, when you're not even working and haven't worked, but when you're like still dreaming, it's like wake up, you're in an audition, and you don't quite know how hard it is to actually get work. I mean,
I
I
am
started.
eternally grateful for the 9 seasons we had. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
a gift.
it's
And
a huge part of history, you know, television history. Did I already
you
tell
had
you
seen
about?
the show before you did it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And plus, uh, going to school there on the same lot and watching you guys, and then being able to maybe get over and just, especially if it was outside of in that one of the little towns, or that's town square,
Mm-hmm.
and then off in the back. That's something I wanted to show you. Your house. This house.
Yeah,
Okay. If you ever watch Mayberry RFD,
it's the same house.
same house.
And Gilmore Girls, it's the same house.
Yeah, I didn't watch that, but
I didn't either. I've just been told that. And I've seen then photos of it that they.
But I knew that house, and I thought they built it for you. And I was watching Andy Griffith and Opie, and I looked at the house. And I thought, man, it makes sense. That's the same house. Burbank Studios. That was my home studio. Going to school there, and then the Waltons was there.
Yeah, I haven't been there in years, but even when I was last there, it had really changed because the whole back lot, the jungle area where our house was, all of that is gone. It's all
really
lots and office buildings. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I guess it's easier now to just jump in a plane and go to somewhere else, and they don't have to build little towns.
Well, then they had moved, because for the last reunion special we did, which was like 1996, there had been a fire on the back lot at one point prior, and the house had burned. But we were doing another reunion. This was when they still had the back lot, and they rebuilt the house. But for the very last reunion, they had then turned all that into parking lots and buildings. And so they moved the house a few blocks away over to the Warner Ranch, like the Columbia Warner.
Oh, yeah.
And they put it over there. So our very last reunion, we shot the exterior of the house on that lot. And it was very strange because it was the front yard and it just felt different. Because you couldn't exactly recreate. You could put the house there, but you couldn't how the front yard was and where the barn was and stuff like that. They just couldn't recreate exactly. So it always felt very strange. It's like, this isn't quite our front yard. Like, less that the house had been remodeled than the yard had been remodeled. And then recently, in the last couple of years, I guess they were doing a major overhaul of the ranch facility and getting rid of a whole bunch of the sets and stuff like that. So I have no idea if the house was part of what was gone.
Well, the Walton house, because we knew where it was back there, but we're talking about outside, like the house, but then on the lot where your living room and the porch was in the studio.
Yeah,
that always fascinated me. And getting to work there, I don't know if you remember, we'd been to a party and had a few drinks, and you were laughing and saying, "Oh, it's so cool," because all the interns and they've got all the test tubes and they're pouring stuff, and we're all and Ellen Corby's just over in the corner seething because we were drinking, and she reminds me of my mom. If I was telling a story like that, she'd be doing the same thing, like huffed up and tense, clenched teeth.
Yeah. When you were on the Warner's lot, what else was filming that you were able to go and observe?
Well, Kung Fu was back there with that monastery thing. I remember your show, the Waltons mostly, and Kung Fu, and that's about it. Some movies or something maybe were being done at the same time.
I know a lot of sets were closed and you couldn't, and people couldn't go on ours. Oh, the tours always came on our sets because we had one of the open sets that they could come and observe, like just the people on tour.
But they were they exterior sets or were they inside this?
They would come into the soundstage sometimes too. Yeah.
Yeah, we had people on One Life that would be off in it, and usually they'd have it would be like somebody who was there maybe from a school or something, and they would lead the tours, but they were kind of school people, and just try to be as quiet as you can. And a lot of times those tours would be more a dress rehearsal where they didn't roll camera a lot for dress rehearsal. It was all about lighting and about getting through it, and then taking a break and getting notes from the director down the makeup room while you're getting touched up and stuff. That's where you got your notes down there.
What sort of notes would they give you? What were they addressing?
Well, I got a lot of, we need more energy. Okay. And then it occurred to me, you know how you get more energy? Believe in the situation. If you got to care and believe in the situation and listening. That's a one thing about acting. It's not a one-sided thing. You don't do your thing and then no, you got to stay in it and listen. Mm-hmm. And if somebody says something, maybe if it's a little different, okay, so you do something a little different. And knowing enough about lighting, don't shift around and throw a shadow on somebody. So that's, I guess you have to be working with two sides of your brain. One being in a situation and believing it, and the other was just knowing where to be in while you're doing all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts or opinions about sometimes when I would watch certain soap operas, it seemed like there was a certain acting style that actors could fall into in doing soaps. Did you ever experience that or see that?
Probably. I know of working with some people that just, even it almost takes you out of it because it's not being, it's acting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the worst. That's the worst thing about acting is to get caught at it.
Yeah.
You don't want, so you have to just, be whoever you are, be whoever you're supposed to be, but just be. Because a lot of times, somebody will be working and then all of a sudden they cut to the other person and the person just sort of relaxes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, we're still in it.
Yeah, when you don't know when that camera's suddenly going to be on you again. And also for your fellow actor to be there and to, that was something that was pretty consistent on our show. All of us early on appreciated and recognized the importance and respect involved in being there for your fellow actors, even when you were off camera, that you didn't walk through your off camera scene,
Yeah. Yeah, you have to have something to watch. There's a play I was doing Barefoot in the Park. And we'd done it in Odessa, Texas. And then we went over to not Flagstaff, but to Scottsdale, Arizona to do it in the Windmill Dinner Theater. Wherever the director, when we went from after Odessa, and it was with Dorothy Lamour. When we went with a new director to Scottsdale, the guy he was on me constantly about energy. And this is during blocking and everything else. And Dottie finally said to him, leave him alone. He needs a live audience. Mm. That's the thing about theater is that a lot of times you take from the audience, you got certain, it just like gives you a shot of adrenaline or something. And it's different than, it's got to be the same way, I guess, in a studio too, but there's something about live audiences a little different. Well, look at sitcoms. Lucille Ball, she couldn't work without a live audience. Hmm. And Desi Lou, that's where they invented an audience and the whole thing with situation comedy. So you had people in, it's just like a shot in the arm. That's when it's fun.
Well, and when with theirs, at least they could go back with taped sitcoms and do pickup shots, but
and later
stage, no pickup shots.
Oh no. Yeah, you got one shot at every word. But it is interesting when things go wrong, and then especially live. I mean, you got to find a way to get out of it. And people, I mean, they know that they're not there watching an actual. There's a sense of what they got to see that nobody else saw. So it makes it kind of, not that it's okay, but it's kind of okay because it made something special for them, and they were there when, the night that
they weren't there the night the train wreck happened.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me for this conclusion of my conversation with Robert Woods. It's been such a treat to get caught up with him again after all these years and to hear more about his life on the Waltons and beyond. Please join me again in the future for more behind the scenes of the Waltons. I will be answering more of your questions in another Ask Judy, and who knows, maybe more special guests. Thanks for watching.